In this video, I'm going to show you how you can drastically speed up your 3D workflow by taking full advantage of Blender's asset browser and how to use it with your own models, the stuff you make, or the stuff you download. I'll also talk about the careful balance of kitbashing with pre-existing models versus modeling things yourself from scratch, and how that ties into using the asset browser efficiently. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I want to talk about modeling versus kitbashing, and I'll kind of explain the balance between those two things. So, first of all, this is an artwork that I just finished. If you don't know what kitbashing is, basically it's just like, so modeling is just, creating a model, like a 3D model from scratch yourself out of nothing or a very simple shape. And then kitbashing is just downloading a 3D model that somebody else made, or just using models that you previously made. So in other words, it's just using a pre-existing model versus creating it from scratch. So sometimes people ask me, like, should you model everything? Like, do you model everything from scratch, or do you kitbash everything? And it's like, it's not always one or the other. Sometimes it's just a balance of both. Like I think this is a really good example of a nice balance between kitbashing and modeling yourself. So let me explain what this is. The part that I modeled in this, there's only really one thing that I modeled when I was creating this entire thing, and it's this thing in the middle. So if I just select this middle thing, this thing is what I modeled, this big thingy in the middle. And everything else in here, I either kitbashed with downloaded models or models that I created from previous projects. So I think this is the most efficient way to do this. Is like, when you model something like this, is you just go in, save this thing you modeled as a 3D model in your asset browser. And then anytime you need this thing in the future, in future projects, like all the pipes and stuff here, I just brought in from past projects. Anytime you need that stuff, it's right there and it's just saved and ready to go. So I think that's a very efficient way to build up your asset library of 3D models, is you just model a thing here and there. Like in this case, I just modeled the main thing in here. And then I'm going to save this to my asset browser. And then anytime in the future I need this kind of thing, it could be like attached to even more models or its own separate thing, or maybe something in the background or whatever. Anytime I need it in a project, I can just pull it out from here, and then it's already done, it's finished. I don't have to worry about modeling this thing again. So I want to talk about like the balance of kitbashing versus modeling now. So this thing in the middle, I modeled from scratch basically, but there was some other stuff in here that I brought in from previous projects that I modeled for other scenes that I just saved. Like all these pipes and stuff here. Pretty much all of this kind of stuff is just like pipes and ventilation tubes and stuff that I made for other projects. And I just saved them all as individual models. And I just dragged and dropped them in here and made them fit into this new scene. It just saves you so much time, but it's still like your own stuff that you made. So it's just nice to have those. So basically what I recommend is just anytime you model something, just save it as a 3D model into your asset browser like this. And then it's just ready for any future project where you might need it. Okay, so also if you want to get these pipes and like download these, you can find that in another video. I'll just link that in the description somewhere. There's a free pack that I made. So then once I had a bunch of my own models brought in here, that's when I started kitbashing with like stuff that I just bought. Like you can see there's big chunks of just factory stuff here. So this is from a pack that I bought. I think this was on CG Trader. So I just chucked a bunch of those on top, and then you can see how much that helps with the complexity of things. Like I didn't have to make all of these individual things from scratch. That would take way too long. I just chucked in a big like cluster of like factory pieces in here. And then that makes creating so much complexity like this a lot easier. You can see if I tried to do all this all from scratch all at once, that would be pretty much a nightmare. But you can see like how much complexity is in here by just dropping in big giant pieces of pre-made stuff or stuff that I made for other projects. So yeah, don't be afraid to kitbash. It's not a bad thing if you do it properly. Even if your entire scene is kitbashed, sometimes I do that. If you just use cool lighting and a cool camera angle, I don't see anything wrong with that. I just prefer to have like my own unique spin on things sometimes. So the way this works is like, when I'm done modeling something like this, I'll show you exactly how I save this in here, because some people are wondering about that. basically, here's how I approach modeling. I kind of keep it all into separate objects like this. You can see like what's kind of separate and what's joined together. So it's all just stuff like this. Lots of separate objects just kind of slammed on top of each other. And then once I have a more complete thing that I would say is finished, like this, what I'll do is just select all of that. It helps if you just keep it all in a collection, that it's easy, so it's easy to select it. Like there's so much stuff in here that it's kind of hard to select piece by piece. But if you have it in a collection, you just right click the collection and then press S, and then it'll select that collection. So I keep all of the models in that one like bigger model, or like the stuff I want to join together all in one collection, and that just makes it super easy to select it. Okay, so here's how I do this. Keep it all together like this, and then just what I'll do is actually go up to this setting right here, object relations, and then make single user, and then click this one right here, object and data. So if I actually right click that, and if you right click this and assign it to your quick favorites, this is one of the settings I use a lot. So that's in my quick favorites. If I just press Q, it's right there. What that does is it just unlinks it from any other geometry in the scene. So if it's like, if you press Alt D and it's somewhere else in the scene as well, and you edit it, it's gonna edit this one too. So when you join it, it'll just mess everything up. So if you just click that setting, it won't affect any other geometry in the scene. That's all it's doing. The next thing I'll do is sometimes I use modifiers when I'm modeling stuff. So like, oh yeah, here's some. So like there's a bunch of arrays and bevels on a lot of this stuff. So it can be really annoying to go in and apply these one by one. So a really easy way to apply all modifiers to everything selected all at once in one button is if you convert it to a mesh. So if you just right click, convert to mesh, what that does is it applies all modifiers to everything you have selected all at once. So it's already a mesh. So we're just converting a mesh to a mesh again, but when you click that setting, it just applies all the modifiers, which is really handy. So you don't have to go through one by one. So there we go. It's now, all the modifiers are all applied, so we can just safely join it together. So if you try and join it and you have modifiers, sometimes those modifiers get applied to everything. So if there's an array, it might array like everything all at once, which is not good. So if you got to apply them before you join them. Once it's joined, now there we go. We have a model. So now that we have that all joined together, what I'll do then is just apply the scale of that new model. Also apply the rotation, and then also just set the origin to geometry. If we just search origin, yeah, just click this one right here. Object set origin to geometry. And that just brings the origin point to the middle of the geometry. So what I like to do is, just to do this in a very clean way, I like to actually create a new file and then append any models that I want from the last thing I was working on into a new file, and then just save them from there. And then that makes it really easy to just save this in a place where the asset browser can read the file. So if you just go to File, Append, choose the model, like just locate the blend file, go to whatever models, or sometimes a collection is better, just a collection of models. You just bring that in. Bring in anything you want into this file. So there's our sci-fi generator we just made. The textures are still on here, so that's good. And then what you do is just right click this, mark as asset, and then it's in your browser, but it's not actually if you go to like your user library, it's not actually there yet. You have to save this blend file in the location where your asset browser actually reads all the information from. So in that case, I just have a folder called scenes. I'd recommend like structuring it a bit better than mine, but just wherever you save it to where, like, I'll show you in a second where your asset browser reads it, that's where you want to save it. So I'll just call this again, sci-fi generator. All you have to do is just, if you go to preferences and go to file paths, you can see on underneath where it says asset libraries, just make sure you add the folder where you're saving all these files to in where your asset library is going to read it. So you can see that scenes folder where I just brought this in is in here already. Mine's a bit messy, but it works. So just make sure that's in there. And then I would just make sure you kind of structure this in a way that's going to make sense when you have a lot of models. So I have a folder called industrial assets. So I guess I'll just drop it in there. So boom, just bring that into my industrial assets folder. Just drop that in, and there we go. It's in there with a bunch of other stuff. So let's actually just do a quick demonstration of what this looks like. Okay, so you can see after doing this for a while, you just get a big bunch of cool stuff that you can just drag and drop in here. Like you can see, this makes it super, super easy to make scenes really fast if you have a library of stuff built up that you've just made. So you can see I'm just dragging and dropping just stuff that I've made in here, and it's just, there's so much, like I have so much stuff in here. It's at the point where it's like, I can make stuff like finished scenes very, very fast just because of all the models that I've saved over the last few years. And this is just a small part of what I have. Like there's all these, here's like stuff I've downloaded, stuff I've made, like castle stuff, more stuff I bought, a bunch of pots that I made. Like, let's see, it's just easy, just drag and drop these in here. Yeah, super, super handy. I'm having fun now, just dragging and dropping this stuff in. But you can see how powerful this is to create stuff really fast. Like look how much stuff is in here, and it's a new file. It's just dragging and dropping it in. Okay, so that was a lot, but hopefully that gives you a clear idea of how powerful the asset browser is, and appending stuff from other projects and just reusing old pieces in like new ways, and just kind of treating them like Lego pieces, and you can just create new stuff out of the same pieces over and over and over again. So yeah, hopefully that's useful, and I'll see you in the next one.